and destructive impulses for months that he found it harder and harder to resist. And he recommended that upon his death that his brain be autopsied for signs of physical disease. Now, so they did autopsy his brain, and they found a tumor in the hypothalamus pressing on his amygdala, which makes a plausible case for the tumor's involvement in his emotional state and his impulse control problems. So this changes things. This is when you find out that this evil murderer has a brain tumor pressing on his amygdala, he suddenly seems like a victim of biology. You have to be unlucky to have this kind of tumor. Who knows if you had a glioblastoma pressing on your amygdala every hour of the day? Who knows what you would do? So I'm arguing that a brain tumor is just a special case of physical events giving rise to thoughts and actions. If we could perfectly understand the brain of any one murderer, no matter how evil, that understanding of the neurophysiology would be as exculpatory as finding a tumor in the brain. If we could see how the wrong genes were being relentlessly transcribed, if we could see how this person's life experience since utero onward had sculpted the microstructure of his brain in just such a way as to reliably produce violent states of mind, the basis for placing blame would disappear. Now most people think we have a strong subjective experience of free will. And the problem is just that we can't map it on to physical reality. This, I think, is an illusion. I think we actually do not feel as free as we think we do. This relies on us not paying very close attention to what it's like to be us. If you pay attention, you can see that you no more author the next thing you think than the next thing I say. Thoughts simply appear in consciousness. What are you going to think next? What am I going to say next? I could suddenly start talking about why we don't eat owls. Why don't we eat owls? They seem perfectly good. Okay. Now, where did that come from? Okay. It came out of nowhere as far as you're concerned, but the same thing is happening in your own mind at this moment. I mean, you've all made an effort to be here tonight, presumably because you wanted to hear what I had to say about free will. And now you're trying to listen to me, but you also have a voice in your head that says things. Haven't you noticed? And it says things. It says things that are completely unconstrained at times by the thing you're trying to focus on. I mean, I'm standing up here trying to reason with you, and you will think, he does look a little like Ben Stiller. Thoughts just emerge in consciousness. We are not authoring them. That would require that we think them before we think them. If you can't control your next thought, and you don't know what it's going to be until it arises, where's your freedom of will? Now, some people try to save free will by saying, well, you're more than that. You're more than just your conscious mind. You are the totality of events occurring in your body. So it doesn't matter that you're not conscious of much of your mental processing. It's the unconscious neurophysiology of your brain is just as much you as your conscious experience is. The problem, however, is that this really is a bait and switch. You can't honestly take credit for your unconscious mental life. You're making millions of decisions right now with organs other than your brain, which you're not conscious of. But you don't feel responsible for these decisions. I mean, are you making red blood cells at this moment? Now, your body is, hopefully. But if it were to stop doing this, you would be the victim of that change. you wouldn't be its author. The truth is, we feel or presume an authorship over our actions, over a certain and thoughts, over a certain channel of information in our conscious minds that is illusory. So how can we be free as conscious agents if everything that we consciously intend is caused by things we did not intend and of which we are entirely unaware? We can't. So what does this mean? Well, first, here's what it doesn't mean. People often confuse any description of determinism with fatalism. So they think, well, if everything's determined, why do anything? I'll just sit back and see what happens. So I'll just throw the oars out of the boat. Okay, this is a sign of confusion because, first of all, it's extremely difficult to do. Just I recommend that you one day try it. Just stay in bed all day waiting for something to happen. It becomes hard to do. I mean, you will feel the impulse to get up and do something, and the only way to stay in bed at that point will be to resist this impulse. So doing nothing is itself a choice that has its own consequences, and it becomes very difficult to do. But the fact that our choices depend upon prior causes doesn't mean that choice doesn't matter. Choice is part of this causal stream of the human mind and our world. So the proximate cause of my writing a book on free will was my deciding to write a book on free will. You can't write a book by accident, although some people seem to manage it, frankly. So my choice to write it was one of the primary reasons it came into being. So decisions and effort and willpower and discipline, all of these things matter. These are causal states of the brain that have an effect upon our actions and the world. So the choices we make in life are as important as most people want to believe they are, but they are part of the stream of causality. And so fatalism clearly doesn't make any sense. The idea that the future is going to be whatever it's going to be, independent of what you think and do, that clearly is untrue. But the next choice you make is going to come out of a wilderness of prior causes which you can't see and didn't bring into being. From the perspective of your conscious mind, you are actually no more responsible for your next thought than you are for your birth into this world. You have not built your mind. And in moments where you seem to build it, where you finally take the reins of your life and you decide to acquire knowledge or learn a new skill, the only tools at your disposal are those which you've inherited from moments past. No one picks their parents or the society to which they were born. No one picks the moment in history in which they live. No one picks their genes or the environmental influences that determine the structure of their brain. You are no more responsible for the exact structure and state of your brain in this moment than you are for your height. So, okay, let's return to this question of moral responsibility, because this is obviously what we all worry about. The great concern is that any honest discussion of this, of the causes of human behavior, seems to throw notions of right and wrong and good and evil out the window. And in fact, that the Supreme Court of the United States has said as much. The Supreme Court has said that free will is a, quote, universal and persistent foundation for our system of laws. And determinism is, quote, inconsistent with the underlying precepts of our criminal justice system. So the idea of free will, it really is doing work in the world. This is not merely an academic debate. And it does psychological work as well. So, for instance, if you're taking a nap in the park and you hear a sound, unfamiliar sound, and you're awakened to the sight of a grizzly bear charging at you from across the lawn, it would be perfectly easy for you to understand that you have a problem, okay, without imagining any free will on the part of the bear. There's an immediate threat to your life. Now, the situation changes in some interesting ways if you swap the bear for a man holding an axe. But the introduction of free will into the brain of your attacker is not one of them. Now, imagine you survive this ordeal, and it's a real trauma, and imagine that you're actually injured. Let's say you lose a hand. Okay, so you have lasting physical injury, and you narrowly escaped with your life. Imagine the difference in your experience. Your subsequent experience is liable to depend far too much, in my view, on the species of your attacker. So imagine what it would be like to see your human attacker, the person who almost killed you with an axe, on the witness stand during trial. Your anger and hatred of this person might be so intense at that moment as to constitute a further trauma. You might spend years of your life fantasizing about this person's death.